The wind has been howling down the chimney all night. The rain has been bashing against the windows, and to be honest, the thought of going up to the allotment today was off-putting, to say the least. So the best thing to do would be invite you into my sitting room where we can sit by the fire, enjoy a cuppa, and I'm going to go through a few of the jobs that I always get on with at this time of year, and they involve choosing which elephant garlic I am going to plant, showing you a really fun, decorative, effective way to preserve your chillies, and also a top tip on how to store your dried beans for over the winter. So yeah, we'll just keep that fire topped up and we'll get going. That's very nice. I'm not quite sure what it is. It's a herbal tea of some ilk, but not quite sure what ilk it is. Right, if you have been following the channel for any amount of time, you will know that I've complained and complained about the bean harvest this year, because it wasn't great last year, but this year on my plot, it was not good at all. However, I have still managed to get quite a healthy amount of gigantes beans, not just to eat, but to store over the winter, and also to use again to plant again next year. So what I'm going to show you is just, this is what I've been left with. I picked these. They were already drying out beautifully on the plant, but I picked them about a month ago, maybe longer. It might even be 2 months ago. And you can tell, can you hear that? They are now completely dried out, and that is how you want them to be before you store them. If they are still partly dry, unless you're going to freeze them, if you want to freeze them demi-sec, you can do, but if you are going to put them away for storage and they are not quite dry enough, then you're in for trouble because they will mould. So what we've got here are 3 beautiful examples of a gigantes bean. Can you see those really nicely? I've got a strange autofocus thing going on my camera and I can't work it out yet. So there we go. They look dry. The pod was rattling, but the best way to tell, much like a pumpkin or anything like that, if you do a thumbnail test, your thumbnail will not go through the outer layer. It'll leave a tiny indentation, but it won't go through the outside. So you know that they are now dry enough. However, unless you look at every single bean very, very closely on an individual basis, you will not know if there are any creepy crawlies in there. And believe you me, because I have done it, when you come to use them, you know, a few months after podding, and you go to your lovely jar of beans and you see in there tiny, tiny little creatures wiggling around, you think, how on earth have they got in there? You realise that they have been happily laying inside of your beans, feasting on them and then hatching out and, yeah, looking ready to attack the next lot. So, top tip with your beans, once you have harvested them, I would suggest you harvest them in something like a little plastic freezer-proof tray, because what you want to do is get them in the freezer, because the freezing temperature will kill off, hopefully, any nasty pasties that have decided to take up residence. So what I'm going to do before I store them in a jar, because this is how I normally store them, just a standard, I mean, you can see what sort of coffee it is if you look at that, but a standard jar. These have been in here, these are from last year, and these are still okay. What I have done as well is put in one of those silicone or silica sachets that you can put in, just to make sure that they stay dry. You can get them in other goods that you buy and you can transfer them. Always keep hold of them, they're really useful. But I know you can get food grade ones as well. I doubt that one is, to be honest. It probably came with a bag or something like that. But yeah, so when you store them properly, fortunately, they have not got any signs of any bad beasties, so they're okay to use. But yeah, just to think on, because not only is it fairly horrible to see, but it's also such a waste, and it's something that can be so easily avoided. So yeah, we'll get all these in these tubs here. If I find one with a hole in, I'll let you know, but you'll see just how difficult it is to spot. Okay, there we go. Beautiful, beautiful tray load of beans there. Now what I will do, I'm going to pop the lid on those. I'll pop those in the freezer, just literally for a day or two. That's why I keep the lid on, because the amount of times I've put things into open freeze and they've got frosted, it's not worth it. So I put the lid on, I will shake those once or twice, and then a day or two later, when they've had a good chance to, you know, really, really have a good freeze and clean out, I'll take the lid off, and then I'll just spread them either on, I don't know, tea towel or a wrap, just to let them dry out from the freezer. And then I will put them in one of these jars with a little sachet, and they should keep for, well, a year, 2 years, as long as you need them. Believe you me, the gigantes don't keep you very long at all, but I will be coming back with those with a special little mention later. So, next thing's next. Another great thing that I make every year is a chilli ristra. I hope I'm saying that right. Forgive me if I'm not, but I make a chilli ristra anyway, even if nobody else knows what it is, every year, because we are all, hopefully, if we're growing chillies, we are all harvesting some great chillies at the moment. And if it's your first time, or even if you're just looking to do something a bit new, you might be thinking about how you're going to store them. There's various different ways. You can put them straight into the freezer like that, or certainly if you've got any bigger ones, and literally you just take them out and grate them into whatever dish you want to, put them back in the freezer. That is so useful. But for us, and for me in particular, I have always dried them. Now, the exception to this is some padron peppers that I've done this year, which I've pickled, my pickled padron peppers. But chilies, I want to put up on a string, and then what happens is they just dry quite naturally, and you just use them as dried chilies. You can crush them afterwards, do whatever you want. But I just thought, people have said to me, well, what on earth is that? Because you might, like I say, you might have a different name for it or whatever, but I'm going to bring you in and show you just how easy it is to make one, and yeah, and how effective it is as a storage mechanism. So I'll bring you in. And all you need are some chilies. Now, I use the longer chilies like this. You could attempt it maybe with Scotch bonnet or the funnier shaped chilies, but I'll show you why that doesn't necessarily work as well. But really, anything will do. So all you need are your chilies and a needle and thread. What can be more easy than that, Jane? Well, I tell you what. The easy thing would be if someone came and actually threaded my needle for me, because my eyesight's awful. Right, okay. A length of thread, yay long. I suppose it depends how long you want your wrister to be. If you've got 1,000 chilies, you might want a little bit more than that. But I'm just going to cut that so far. And then all it is finding a suitable needle. Of course, I haven't sorted this all out beforehand. Why would I? I'm Jane. There we go, there, that'll do. That's more of a darning needle, but it will do for now. And then thread your needle. And then all you are going to do, honestly, it's so fun to do, put a knot at one end. In fact, I do a double knot. This is quite thick thread. I can't remember what I got it for. It's not standard sewing thread, but standing sewing thread will do. You just want something that you are going to be able to thread through the top of the chilli. String is too thick. Okay, I've got a double knot there. And then it's as simple as pick your first chilli and I go through the fleshy bit. It's still fleshy because it's not completely dried out, at the bottom of the stalk, and thread it along. And you will know if your knot's big enough, because if your knot is too small, will just fall off the end. Okay, so I know that's okay. I might have to double it in a minute, but okay, start there, carry on. Let's get the next one. I mean, you know, if you've got a selection of red and green chilies, you might want to make a bit more of a decoration of it. What does happen though, do be careful of this, it does tend to tingle-tangle on the way, so try and keep it so your first one's further away from you. But yeah, you could put, for example, I have got one green chilli here, so I'm going to pop that in just to give it a place as a representative of the green chilies. Literally just thread it along and keep going. That's it. That is as simple as that is. And all that needs to happen once you've finished is you will just hang them somewhere and they will dry quite happily without any interference from you, as long as you put it, obviously, not in a damp shed or a damp garage or anything like that. We had these on the lights in the kitchen one year, and they just made perfect Christmas decorations. I mean, they were up all year, but they looked like we deliberately made them for Christmas, so brownie points for that. But yeah, I'll bring you in closer so you can see just how easy this is. Something else I have been up to this week at the allotment is Mike and I have finally got round to putting some slabs out. Is that enough now? Which we've got one more to do, but since we started putting them down, it's been bucketing down, so it's very, very muddy, but that is going to be absolutely lovely. Of course, Mike did most of it. He's very good at things like that. But another thing that we did this week, and really, it was one of those days, it was such beautiful weather that we should have been up at the allotment, is that we went for a visit to a place called Haddon Hall, which is in the Peak District. And it was absolutely beautiful. The day was a beautiful, perfect autumn day, and it was topped off by the fact that when we got there, we managed to see that there was an exhibition on sorcery and witchcraft and just how it would have affected the people who lived there in centuries gone by, particularly during the times of the witch trials. And yeah, so I loved it. I was out and about hunting for witch marks in the timbers and that sort of thing. But it was absolutely fascinating history. Apparently it's been a backdrop to so many historical dramas. I think all of the Jane Eyre adaptations were filmed there, or certainly the three that were most famous. So yeah, absolutely glorious day out. I would highly recommend it. Here we go. And all I'm going to do is hang them off my light fitting because, yeah, it's actually in the kitchen. I wouldn't usually advise that you dry things out in the kitchen because it can get really steamy, but this is away from all the cooking area, so should be okay. And then once they're dry, you can flake them. Pop them in a coffee blender, one that's not used anymore, obviously. And you could make your own mix. You could do a really hot mix. You could do a mix of hot and mild. We'll be growing California Reaper next year, only because someone sent us the seeds. And so we'll have a super hot, spicy blend as well. But yeah, use sparingly, but a really, really lovely way of using your chilies. So, right, okay, I've done my chilies, I've done my beans. The last thing I want to show you, and then I'll let you know what the secret is. But these are my elephant garlic. Not all of them, but these are from this year's harvest. Now, I started off with, I think it was just one bulb of elephant garlic 6 or 7 years ago. And each year I have kept more behind to plant the next year than I have eaten, if that makes sense. So it's been really, really precious. We've given the odd couple of cloves away to friends, etc. But it's time to start thinking about planting your garlic again. Most people by now will already have their garlic ready to plant here in the UK. We're coming up to the end of October. But also, if you have not planted elephant garlic, consider giving it a go. Some people don't like it. I adore it. It is not a traditional garlic. It's part of the leek family, but it's got quite a beautiful, creamy garlic flavour. It doesn't have that hot garlic that can sometimes be just that little bit bitter. It's brilliant roasted with just some oil on it, so you can eat them whole. Just throw a few whole cloves. I mean, it is really decadent to do that with your roast dinner because of the price of them, but just a beautiful thing to do. But as I say, from that one bulb that I had many years ago, I have now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 2 halves, so say 9 bulbs. And we've given away a couple and we've eaten quite a bit. So I'd say we've probably had about 15 bulbs in our harvest. What I should have done, and what I would advise that you do, is once you harvest your garlic, once you harvest your elephant garlic, you don't have to do this with the ordinary garlic. You break the cloves up separately because they are so big. You don't want them to mould. So they need as much air around them, that's what I would say, as they possibly can. You'll have ones like that have got like a hidden clove inside, so that's actually 2 cloves. But it's only got 1 base, so I'd be tempted to put that in as 1 clove. I'm going to choose the biggest ones to replant for next year. So yeah, I'm not too bothered about taking all the paper off, the papery stuff off or anything. If it bothers you, you can do, but always think of that layer there. It's a layer of protection. I mean, that just fell off, but yeah, you will usually get with these 3, 4, 5 separate cloves. But as I say, I wouldn't think necessarily of planting a small one like that next to a huge one like that, because I would hope, this is my reasoning anyway, the bigger the clove that you plant, the bigger the bulb you will get. Right, what I was keeping from you as a little tease from the beginning is, as I have said before, these are quite expensive to actually buy. I have seen them going from anything between £2 to £4.50 per clove, not per bulb, per clove. So what I am going to offer you today is a chance to have some of my very own cloves, and I promise you I'll pick you some really, really nice ones, sent to you in the good old-fashioned post, along with some of my gigantes beans, so that next year you can harvest your very own giant garlic and giant beans. All I want you to do is say in the comments below exactly why it is you love garlic, because if you love garlic, you will love this. So, a little challenge for you there. And I'll put a deadline on for Halloween. So anyone that's contacted me by next Friday will go in the hat, and then I can let you know next Sunday. And I think that would be quite a nice way of sharing what is just such a fun thing to grow. On that note, The fire seems to be dwindling. I certainly need to refresh my cup of tea. The house smells fantastically of garlic, and Rocky seems to have conked out. So I hope you've enjoyed a little bit of a change of scenery. I hope you're not getting too wet and too cold, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.